Are you struggling generally in your work life? Are you feeling like you're in the wrong line of work, you need to make a change in your career, or you need to start making a business, yet wondering which way you should go, wondering how you make this work? If that is an area that you're struggling with, then this is going to be for you. If you are feeling and have always known that you are here for something really important, yet you just haven't been able to actualize that or trust that, then you're definitely in the right place. Or if you are about to make a transition from an existing career into a new business, then you are also definitely here in the right place. These pieces that you're struggling with are often caused by the fact that you may well be a highly sensitive person or an HSP. The problems that you are experiencing are not because you're sensitive. They are for a very different set of reasons, and that's what we're going to cover today. If you're unsure as to whether you're an HSP or not, then please write in the comments below, send me the quiz, please. And I will send you a link to our quiz. You can go through the quiz and you can assess for yourself if you are an HSP, a highly sensitive person. For all the men that are watching this, the word sensitive, and of course for women too, the word sensitive immediately puts us off. No man wants to be identified as being sensitive. And, and I completely understand that. I was the same way. Please don't be put off by this. It does not mean that you're sensitive in the way that that is a weakness. It actually means that you are high sensory, which is going to give you a very important set of skills, especially when it comes to work. The area of work for us as HSPs, it can be a very confusing area, and it's something that we really, really want to make sense of because of some of the very important pieces that I'm going to be covering today. My name is Willow McIntosh, and I've been training HSPs for the last 8 years to become specialists in their natural area of expertise, sometimes as coaches, sometimes as facilitators, consultants. We have an amazing opportunity as HSPs to really understand and embrace the area of work that we were absolutely born for. And there's a way to understand that. Okay, so the real reason that HSPs are struggling with work is because most of the time we're trying to fit in to conventional ways of being successful. And this really doesn't work for us. So typically what's happening as an HSP, a little bit unsure, is because we are trying to we're being conventional. This doesn't work for us. Being conventional means following typical paths to success, typical paths in careers and in business. And this doesn't work for us because it's not who we naturally are. And this is what's really key. We're also trying to fit in most of the time. And when we're trying to fit in, what's happening is we are ignoring the key parts of our natural skill set and abilities. And what's also happening is that we are ignoring our natural gifts. And this is also going to cause us serious problems. As an HSP, and again, if you're unsure, then, as I say, pop just a message in the comments saying, can you send me the quiz? And I'll send you the quiz so you can go through and see for yourself if you're an HSP. And my invitation there is to be absolutely honest about the questions, because this will really change everything for you. As an HSP, we are neurodivergent, which simply means that we are wired differently. What's happening for us as HSPs is that we are receiving greater blood flow to different parts of our brains that focus on emotional awareness, subtleties in the environment around us, and also deeper cognitive processing. Now, those areas are fundamental to the identity of who you are. So if you're not honoring that, or if you're not even aware that that's happening, then we typically fall into these areas where we're trying to be conventional, we're trying to fit in, and we have no idea what our natural gifts are. And this is what causes this despondency and confusion in our work lives. So the real problem is that we don't trust our skills and abilities because they don't feel conventional. In other words, they don't fit in. So therefore, we are suppressing and ignoring the parts of ourselves that are actually designed to help us excel in our area of natural expertise, which is what is so important, especially if we're transitioning into business or we're trying to make a career change. So let me just reiterate this part about why we are different in this way. We are receiving greater blood flow to the parts of our brains that help with deep cognitive processing. All right. So I'm going to call this, these are actually your HSP advantages. Now, these actually spread across lots of areas, and this isn't the video for all of those right now, but what I really want to help you to understand is that because you're wired differently, you have these advantages, and if you're not owning these and utilizing these, it's really going to mess with your identity, especially in your work life. So by receiving greater blood flow to these areas in our brain, one of the key advantages that you have is deep cognitive processing. So that means that you are processing the world around you at a deeper level. And that is happening in a very particular area of life. It's happening in an area of life that deeply matters to you. It's not just happening generally everywhere. And we'll come to that just in a moment. And the second is your heightened emotional awareness. So your emotional awareness, this is a really powerful ability, right? Because it's not just happening in you. So the relationship with your own emotional world is deeper, it's more enhanced. So you're going to be feeling your emotions much more, which is why we're often referred to as being emotionally reactive. This means that we're actually having a profound inner world in ourselves. We're actually able to feel into the truths of life. We're able to feel into the truths of ourselves much more deeply. We're actually having a greater sensory experience, which gives us a huge advantage, not only in our own experience, but also in processing and reading other people's emotions. So for us as HSPs, when we say we're more empathic, it doesn't mean that we are more compassionate about how someone else is feeling. It actually means that we're able to feel, quite literally able to feel how someone else is feeling. And this has been confirmed to me time and time and time again over the last 8 years that I've been training HSPs. It is a reality. It is an ability. It might sound a bit woo-woo, but let me assure you it's happening. And what's really important is that you learn to utilize this ability and learn to differentiate between what's your feelings and what's someone else's feelings. This is a key advantage that you have. And you also have stronger sensory sensitivity. So this means that how you're actually noticing the environment around you is happening at a greater, deeper level. So in other words, you're going to notice subtleties in environments. And this, when you understand that this is working in an area that really matters to you, you'll notice the nuances and the subtleties of what you're actually noticing and seeing. And that is a tremendous advantage, whether it's in your the work environment that you're in, whether it's going to be a new area that you want to move into. It's really important to understand that this sensory sensitivity is actually allowing you to pick up on key data points of information in the environment around you, which helps you to facilitate. It helps you to bring great value in particular areas. But what's key here with all of this is understanding how this is actually all working in you personally. So if we're not utilizing these abilities in the right way, or we're not aware of these abilities, then this is what leads to tremendous struggle in our work lives. And this is because of what I like to call the two selves problem. The two selves, that is an L. The two selves problem. Our first self here is the part of us that is trying to fit in. This is all very much a head experience. This is all us trying to make sense of ourselves or create a version of ourselves that fits in, basically. And this is understandable because we can feel that we're different as HSPs, but we so rarely get the training and the understanding and awareness of why we're different and the importance of being different. It's very natural for us to reject any differences because that's what humankind does. When there's something new, we fear it. So we all try to fit in to move forward together. And that makes sense. That is a part of our strength in our society. It makes sense that we do that. But the problem is it also means that we are missing out on important parts of the genome, which the HSP trait is in 30% of the population. We're learning now the importance of this. But for you, what it means is that you're going to be trying to fit in so you don't feel different. But that's going to cause problems, especially in your work life. So this is trying to fit in this first version of self, all right? So it's living in your head. You're going to be in your head much of the time because it's in our head that the full self is constructed. Yes, that's very similar to the ego, but in our case, what's happening is, especially as children, we created a version of ourselves that fits in order to be accepted, and we still maintain that full sense of self as we come into adulthood. And this then therefore also means that you're ignoring your deeper gifts. And this is a problem. Now, in self 2, this is where everything can change for you. In self 2, this is actually who you really are. This is the truth of who you really are. And this is helping, this is recognizing and owning the fact, or starting to explore that you are actually deeply gifted. So if you think about it, nature's not going to give 30% of the population a difference in where the blood flow is going, a difference in how the central nervous system is operating, a difference that's actually been in the human genome ever since early man. Nature's not going to continue that proportion of the population unless there's a very important reason for it. So this is an invitation for you to understand and tune into as to what your natural gifts are. So you are actually deeply gifted. And what's ironic here is that you know this. You were aware of it as a child. So again, the hundreds of HSPs I've trained over the years, in every single case, there was a profound awareness of self as a child, which happens for all children. But we're deeply aware of what our gifts are as a child. We can't necessarily articulate it or utilize them yet in the way they're designed to, but we're aware that we're seeing the world differently, and we're aware that we actually have a key set of abilities. And those are very, very real. So also, you are intuitive, highly intuitive, and empathic. Now, being intuitive means that you're actually able to receive information and make specialized assumptions. Assumption is not quite the right word. Your intuition is actually allowing you to receive information from outside of your normal day-to-day senses. So in other words, you're receiving messages, you're receiving information energetically, and you're also receiving information from the higher truth within you that is able to see more deeply into the fabric of life. So by understanding that your intuition allows you to utilize your gifts, and it also allows you to trust a deeper part of yourself, when you start to apply this and when you start to own this and you start to become used to how that functions, you'll realize it's actually operating at a much higher level than non-HSPs. And again, as I always say, this doesn't mean to say that we are better than non-HSPs. We need both in the world. But when it comes to our intuition, it's a very developed part of our ability. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because the higher sensory ability allows us to read deeper nuances. It allows us to be more open as a receiver of the information from the world that's being transmitted externally and transmitted internally. So we are accessing deeper parts of ourselves. This is why we are known to be so intuitive. And of course, the empathy piece, as I've already touched on, is we are able to actually read the emotional and energetic signature of another person. And that is an incredibly powerful ability. So you're also naturally skilled, right? You're naturally skilled in a very particular area. And when you understand this, you'll get to see that the state of you is all of you within your body, most importantly. And the true version of you that is in ownership of this and in awareness of who you truly are, self 2 here, this is where we are able to move into the right career or into the right business from a foundation of reality within the truth of our identity. In other words, we are actually able to move forwards from a place of knowing our truths, our gifts, our area of expertise, and that makes it much, much easier to make the right choices in work. So this is a shift that we are making here. We're making a shift from self 1 to self 2. This is what's key, and this is what must happen in order to make our work life make sense. So how do we start to understand this in ourselves, and how can we start to get clear on these pieces in ourselves? So in order to make this shift, there are 4 key areas that really help us to understand what the truth of self really feels like, what the state of that is, to reveal these pieces. All right, so we have 4 key areas. And again, if you're wanting to find out if you're an HSP, again, just put in the comments, please send me the quiz and I will get that over to you. So in these 4 key areas, these 4 areas are as a result of this period of work that I've worked with HSPs, and also my own decade of training that I undertook before I started this work with HSPs. These 4 key areas are what came through from my own process and through the thousands of hours that I have worked with HSPs. These 4 areas are really, really important. And before I go into these, please don't, I don't want to to pretend that this is a shift that's going to happen overnight. Once you understand these pieces, and obviously in this video I can only do a short introduction to these, once you get these pieces, they need to be integrated over a period of time. And in order to do that effectively, there is a course that we have put together that will take you through these 4 areas, asking you a very specific set of questions that will help you to reveal these. And what you do is you do a module each week, and at the end of the course, it will actually give you an experience of the state of self 2, the truth of your natural identity, the truth of what your natural skills feel like. And people are getting amazing results with this course. I'm not just saying that. It's a process that just works for us as HSPs. So let me give you an overview of these, and hopefully you will start to get an experience of these after you've watched this video, and you can start to start to process these and notice these over the next few days. So what are these 4 areas? The first is, of course, what do I notice or focus on in people? What do I notice or focus on in people? All right. Let me explain what that means. What do I notice or focus on in people? Now, when you were a child, this would have been really prominent. You would have absolutely been in complete ownership and fascination by this. And it's been going on all of your life. But what happens is when we're in this false version here, when you're fitting it in your head and ignoring your gifts, you're shutting that piece out. Because conventional life says, don't be different, don't be woo-woo, don't be high sensory, be normal. That's how we're going to be successful in society. If we're all the same, we've got the same values and we're driving for the same goals. But that is not what we're meant to be as HSPs. We're meant to be neurodivergent. We're supposed to be different because of the value in that perspective. So my invitation is to tune into what it is that you notice or focus on in people, right? So what's happening there is your higher sensory ability is actually designed to focus in a very particular area of life. And it's what I call our fascination. It's actually a part of your awareness that is constantly thinking about and tracking a very particular area of life. And the best way to do that is with people. So my version of this is I have always been fascinated and challenged by potential, empowerment, and purpose. Those are the 3 areas that deeply fascinate me. Whenever I meet someone new, I'm immediately scanning them at a deeper sensory level to try to understand their purpose, to try to understand their potential, because I naturally want to support them in that area. So if you're fascinated by well-being, you will naturally be scanning people in the area of whether they're eating properly, whether they're in the right line of work, whether they're in the right kind of relationship. You will naturally be focusing on a particular area. So this is key. What are you noticing or focusing on in people when you naturally allow yourself to do that? This is part 1 of the 4. Obviously, there's four spaces there, but these are really key. I really want you to try to embrace this and understand this, because it makes a massive difference to the area of work that we're supposed to be in. You're designed to be in a particular area of work. So the second, and I want to say this in ways that's clear for you to understand. So what are you good at sensing, seeing, or feeling? What are you sensing, seeing, and feeling more deeply? I'll explain what I mean by that. What are you sensing, seeing, feeling more deeply? And how are you doing that? So when you think about it, nature gave this ability to us to process at a deeper cognitive level. So this means, and there's a good way of thinking about this, is when a non-HSP and an HSP go into a room, and whatever happens out that room, perhaps it's a networking event or a dinner party or whatever's going on, whatever it is in that room, if it's just a conversation, let's say, the HSP will come out that room with 100 cups of information. The non-HSP will come out of that room with 1 cup of information. Now that, to come out with 1 cup of information in many contexts is an advantage. And in other contexts, it's an advantage to come out with 100 cups of information. So those two people can then utilize that gift together. So you can share what the information is that you came out with. This is why it's so important for us to be in partnership. But what's key for you as an HSP is to be really clear and aware of what you are sensing, seeing, and feeling more deeply, and how. So this again is another part of this, of the full self version of ourselves that we're so rarely in ownership of. The majority of us are hiding our high sensory awareness as HSPs because we want to fit in. And that is what's causing depression in 50% of HSPs in the Western world, is because we are in rejection of ourselves. But the thing is you can't ignore this part of yourself. By repressing it, that's what's causing the pain. That's what's causing the difficulty, and especially in your work life. So my invitation is to explore and become curious about what you're sensing at a deeper level. So if you think about it, that blood flow is coming into your brain to highlight a particular area of your sensory experience. So for me, when I am observing a person, I can feel the blocks in them. I can feel when they're in story, and I can feel when they're in truth. I can track micro-expressions and tone of voice that helps me to feel the energetic truth of who they are. And then my intuition allows me to receive messages and information that allows me to then ask the right questions that helps them to align with their truth. Now, it's taken me a long time to own that ability and time to truly practice that for me to experience it to the degree that I do right now. But I assure you, you have a version of this ability. You have a version of that ability that I just explained to you right there. And by getting curious about what you're sensing, what you're feeling, what's happening at that deeper cognitive level, it will start to give you insights into how your gifts are functioning and the advantages that you have. And when you start to recognize these patterns, it will become much more clear as to the work, business, or career that you're naturally meant to be doing. So the third is, what is it that you truly care about? Now, this is a real giveaway. I'm going to put this one in red because this is really important, this one. What do you truly care about? Now, care about. Now, this is a really big one for us as HSPs because we are naturally deeply caring people. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we're all angels, but it does mean to say that we have a slightly different relationship with our values. And again, I'm not saying that we're better or worse. It's really important that we don't think like that. We're supposed to be in partnership. Our natural values and the cause that's in our heart is a very big part of our life. And again, as a child, this is what would often cause big disruption and upset in our experience as a child, when the area of life that we deeply cared about did not seem to be adhered to or noticed by other people, our parents, our friends, our family, whatever it may be. That used to be very disturbing for us as a child. Is why can't people see that if we hurt animals, we're hurting the greater picture, we're hurting ecology, which eventually hurts us. We can't explain that as a child, but we can see it directly. So there's something in your heart that you deeply care about. For me, I have always deeply cared about the natural progression towards the world being in peace and balance. That's what my heart wanted to see and wanted to see as a child. And what's happening for me is that I can see that the potential and purpose in human beings will actually allow us to move into a higher state of consciousness where we are moving into a place of peace and balance. I can sense the natural flow of life that's trying to achieve that through people and the natural flow that's in the world. And that might sound, well, how on earth can you see that? But I assure you, you have a version of this. If you take the time to get curious about this, you will notice that this cause in your heart is actually deeply connected to your sensory awareness of what you're processing and seeing. So what do you truly care about? Do you deeply care about relationships and the importance of love? Do you deeply care about well-being? Do you care about purpose and potential? Is it the ecology? Is it animals? This part of life will be very big for you. And if you're ignoring that or you're repressing that, it's really going to disrupt your well-being, especially when it comes to your work. This is why HSPs tend to make really great self-employed business owners. We have to do that in a way that works for us, but the reason we want to make that transition much of the time, should I say as well, the fact is because it's very difficult for us to be on someone else's agenda if we can't be following and honoring this part of life that we deeply care about. This is where your power is. If you really embrace this, it will be hugely energizing for you to move into the business or career that you really want to be working with. And if you're going against that, if you're in this place of rejection, this is a very depowering state to be. When you're trying to fit in, you're in your head, you're ignoring your gifts. This is what keeps us stuck. This is what keeps us stuck in the wrong job. It's a very painful place for us to be because this area that we care about is so important to us. So by utilizing these pieces, I'm going to give you the fourth now, it's going to help you make this shift into this deeply gifted, intuitive part of yourself where you know who you are and the area of work that you're supposed to be in. So the fourth area is, and the reason I'm reading my notes here, I mean, I know these profoundly well, but I want to use language that truly makes sense for you. So I'm looking at my notes. What area of life keeps challenging and training me? All right, so I'd like you to think about what area of life keeps challenging and training you. This is a big giveaway. What area of life keeps training and challenging you? This is very helpful in many ways. And I'll explain why just in 1 second. So what area of life keeps training and challenging you? Now, the way human purpose works is we're given an area of competence and we're given a fascination in that area of competence. All human beings are born with a natural area of competence in some area. And we're also fascinated by that, which is what this area is here. But also what happens in life is then we're challenged, and we're challenged in that very area that fascinates us. And that's nature's way of training us in the area of life that we're meant to be implementing our purpose in. So when you look back over your life, you might think, yes, it's purpose, or it is well-being, or it is relationships, but that's been the hardest part of my life. That's a great sign, because that means you're on track. This is the area of life that you're meant to be working in, because your sensory awareness, as I call this, your sensing and feeling and the area that you're sensing more deeply is in service to this area. It's in service to the area of life that keeps challenging you. So in other words, if you're struggling with well-being, if you look back over your life and that has been consistent through your life, you'll also notice that you're naturally gifted at sensing and feeling in that area of life more deeply. So this is really important. This is the area that I call your journey. Your journey through life it's an indicator into your area of expertise. So please don't worry. This doesn't mean you're supposed to have it all figured out. No one is going to reach full mastery of any area of life before we die. It's just not what we're here to do. We're here to evolve, to learn, and to gain as much as we can during our life. But there's never going to be an end point. Well, there's an end point obviously when we die, but there's no end point in terms of when we stop learning. So it doesn't mean to say that you're supposed to be in full mastery of your area, but what it does mean is that you're actually deeply experienced in an area of life. And that helps to reframe your life. When you look back and think, oh, it's been such a nightmare, if you think about it, you've actually been challenged in one particular area, and that is giving you tremendous authority and credibility in that area. So the question to ask is, how's life been training me in this area? So when you start to see the patterns in these four, and I invite you to tune into these and start to think about these in more detail, to get curious to notice these, then it's going to give you a big insight into how this is working for you. So it's shifting from what we think we should be doing or what we think we should be into recognizing where we are actually already gifted. And this is what's going to make this enormous difference. So again, there's only so much that you can get from this, but I'm hoping that it's going to give you an insight into start to making these this shift in your awareness now, to start to make this shift from the false into the true by thinking about these four areas. This is where I meet all of my clients in this state. And the shift into understanding your gifts and your abilities is absolutely possible, and it's meant for you. There's nothing wrong with you. That's the key to take away from this. Okay, so there we are. I hope this has been helpful to think about this. What I want you most of all to know and to recognize, as I have already said, is that being an HSP is a tremendous advantage in the world. It was the greatest shift for me to come into ownership of my gifts and to start to apply those in my work. I used to be completely confused and about the area of work I was supposed to be in, and it was something I was constantly tortured by. I just could not, I could not be in jobs that I wasn't supposed to be in. It used to just drive me crazy. And that's because of what I deeply cared about. It just wouldn't leave me alone. It was constantly knocking at the soul of my door saying, just do what you want to do. But then the response to that from me would be like, well, I don't know what it is I'm supposed to be doing. So with this process, it will help you to understand what it is you're supposed to be doing. And most importantly, to recognize that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just about making this shift into this true state of who we are. And then we can work and use that as a foundation in our work. So as a final piece that I want to say is, hopefully this will give you the insights that you need. However, if you're really serious about this and you have absolutely had enough of being in the wrong job, or you're about to make a shift into a business, especially if you're making that transition to be a coach or a facilitator or a consultant, which is a very natural progression for us, then this course it could be hugely valuable for you. And I just, I can't emphasize enough the importance of making this transition into the awarenesses of these pieces naturally and being guided through them. So it will allow you to take those steps sequentially and to be asked the right questions. It's 8 modules, which I recommend doing over 8 weeks minimum. You can do it faster, but I recommend definitely doing it 1 module a week, where it allows you to really integrate and hold the questions in your heart. And it's going to give you a great deal of information in each of these areas. So there's 45 minutes on each of these sections alone. And then the other modules are all about how to actually make this shift into the true foundation of the state of who you are. And at the end of it, in the final module 8, you actually get an experience of this state, because this experience is a bodily, energetic state of you. And this course will give you that experience by being asked these questions that have been formulated through all the years of me working with HSPs and through my own training and experience. So if you're ready to do that, the link is in the description. You can read the information, you can ask questions, of course. You can reach out to us at support@illuminance.com if you have questions about the process, about the course. It's a self-study course, so you can do it at your own time. And it's also within the community, so you can ask me questions as you're going through the course if you get stuck with anything. But most of all, my greatest wish for you is to know how important you are in the world, and that you have a designed niche that you're born to be working in. And when you're in awareness of that, and when you truly own that, it changes everything when it comes to our career, our work, and our business. Thanks so much for watching. I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know if you want a link to the quiz, if that's the first step that you want to make to understand if you're an HSP, and then let me know how I can serve you better. Thanks very much. Bye for now.